So during this course, I've been throwing around the term functional interface a bit, and I haven't explained what that means. So in this tutorial, we're going to look at what a functional interface is. Remember I told you that for an interface to be declared as a type for a Lambda expression, it needs to have one abstract method, right? So we've looked at an interface with just one method, and that was a perfect candidate for being used as a Lambda expression type. We saw the greeting interface, which had just one method called greet, and you could create a Lambda expression of that type. Now, what do I mean by abstract method? What do I mean by an interface which has one abstract method? This is an additional requirement for this definition as of Java 8, because in Java 8 you can write interfaces which have implementation methods. Before Java 8, when you have an interface, it's always abstract methods, right? You just declare the method signature, but you don't define the method itself. It's up to the implementation class to implement the method of the interface. But with Java 8, you can have methods implemented in the interface itself. So you could have an interface which have like 3 methods, out of which 2 of them have a default implementation, and 1 method is the abstract method. So that interface would be an interface with one abstract method. So this is a requirement for an interface to be considered as a type for a Lambda expression. It could have as many methods as it wants, but there has to be one abstract method only, all right? So this kind of an interface which has only one abstract method, is called a functional interface. This is the type of interface that we can use for declaring Lambda types. Now, a functional interface is something that is a property of an interface. Now you can define an interface which is a functional interface today, but it could change later. Somebody could come in and add another abstract method, and it's going to no longer be a functional interface. Now if you have Lambda expressions that depend on that functional interface, then we have trouble, right? We're not going to be able to use that interface anymore because somebody added another abstract method, and now it's no longer a functional interface. So with Java 8, we have a new way of marking a specific interface as a functional interface, and we're going to be looking at that in this tutorial. We looked at the runnable interface in the last tutorial, and we know that that's not going to change. We're not going to be adding new methods to the runnable. But how about something that we have created, something like a greeting? This has only one method, and it works fine for our Lambda expression. This gives a clear hint to the compiler about what method we are talking about, because there's just one. What if there is more? You remember this class works fine, right? We are able to create a Lambda instance of this greeting by having a Lambda expression. But now what if I went to the greeting and I added another method? Let's say I add a public void another. Now this is going to be a problem. Our Lambda is going to fail. Of course, the implementation is going to fail as well. But when you know that you're creating an interface just for the sake of Lambda and you're distributing it as a library, it's hard to see what are all the consumers of this interface. And you really don't want to change the interface ever if it's being used as an interface for a Lambda. This is different from if you had an interface for class implementations. You could create a new method in an interface and ask the consumers of that interface who are creating new classes to add that method in the class. But if the consumer is a Lambda expression, they don't really have a choice. They cannot add a method. They are counting on your interface to be just that one method. So in order to enforce this, and in order to make sure none of your other teammates or other developers are going to go in there and add a method by mistake, you use this annotation called the add functional interface. This interface is from java.lang, so you don't really need an import. This add functional interface kind of gives a clue to any other developer that this is meant to be a functional interface. Any interface is considered a functional interface if there is only one abstract method, and this kind of enforces it. Now, if I were to do the exact same thing as I did last time, I do a public another. If I were to do this, guess what happens? The error shows up right here in the interface itself. It says invalid add functional interface annotation, because greeting, this interface is now not a functional interface. It has an additional method. All right. This is another way to kind of enforce this and to also convey your intention that a particular interface is meant to be used as a functional interface. So while it's optional, it's recommended to use it so that your intentions are clear about how this interface needs to be used.